There was a time when $120,000 a year meant you had arrived. A driveway with 2 cars in it, a backyard big enough for the dog and a barbecue. Maybe a boat you'd use twice a summer and complain about the other 50 weeks. That was the six-figure dream, and for a generation, it delivered. In 2026, $120,000 doesn't buy a backyard, it barely buys a balcony. The number that used to whisper elite now just says baseline, the new Canadian normal for a single professional in a major city. You picture a detached home with a lawn. The market hands you a studio with a view of the parking garage and a laundry room you share with 40 strangers. So let's do something honest. Let's take that $120,000 and follow it, dollar by dollar, gate by gate, all the way to a set of keys. And let's find out exactly how much house it actually buys. First, the part nobody prints on the offer letter. That $120,000 is a gross number. It's the storm, not the snow you get to keep. Here's the way to picture it. Your salary is a fresh pot of coffee brewing on the counter. Before you pour yourself a single cup, 3 hands reach in. The CRA pours first, and it pours the biggest cup, federal and Ontario tax together. Then CPP takes a cup and labels it 30 years from now. Then EI takes a small cup and sets it by the window, just in case it rains. Only after all 3 have poured do you get whatever is left in the pot. So how much is left? On $120,000 in Ontario. Once the CRA takes its federal and provincial share, CPP takes just under 6% up to its ceiling, and EI takes its slice. You're left with roughly $86,500 for the year. That's about $7,200 a month actually landing in your account. Nearly 28% of your prestige salary evaporated before it ever touched your life. And here's the cruel twist. The lender doesn't lend against the $7,200 you take home. They lend against the number from before the coffee got poured. Hold on to that, because it's about to matter. Now you walk into the bank feeling wealthy, and you meet the gatekeeper, the OSFI Stress Test. Here's the trap almost every buyer falls into. You find a rate, let's call it 5%, and you assume the bank simply checks whether you can pay at 5%. It doesn't. Picture a bridge with an inspector standing at the entrance. You want to drive across at your real weight, your actual rate, but the inspector doesn't weigh your car as it is. He loads 2 invisible passengers into your back seat first, an extra 2%, and only if the bridge holds with those phantom passengers riding along will he raise the gate. So your 5% mortgage gets tested at 7%. The rule is simple and completely unforgiving. Prove you could survive if rates climbed, or you don't cross. Every affordability number from here on gets calculated at that 7%, not the rate you'll actually pay. That single rule is the biggest reason your 6-figure income buys less house than your parents' modest monthly paycheck once did. The gatekeeper measures you with 2 sticks, GDS and TDS. GDS, gross debt service, says your housing costs, meaning your mortgage, your property tax, your heat, and half of your condo fees, can't swallow more than 39% of your gross monthly income. On $10,000 a month, that's a hard ceiling of about $3,900 for the entire roof over your head. TDS, total debt service, is the wider net. It says, all of your debts combined, housing plus your car, plus your student loans, plus your credit cards, can't cross 44%. And this is exactly where dreams quietly shrink. Say you've got a clean slate, no debt at all. At 7% over 25 years, that $3,900 of room supports a mortgage of roughly $430,000. Now add one modest car payment, just $500 a month, and watch what it does. That $500 doesn't cost you $500 of house. Stretched across the mortgage math, it erases about $70,000 of borrowing power. Your car didn't take a parking spot. It took a bedroom. A student loan does the same thing. Silently, in the background, every $100 of monthly payment is a wall you're building around your own future kitchen. Let's say you clear the gate. You still can't buy a thing yet, because of the money nobody warns you about, the forgotten 5%. On top of your deposit, you need cash for closing. In the GTA, that means land transfer tax, and if the home sits inside the city of Toronto, you pay it twice, once to the province and once to the city. Then legal fees, then title insurance, then a home inspection, then the moving truck. On a typical GTA purchase, that stack adds up to an extra $30,000 to $40,000 in cash, sitting on top of your down payment. First-time buyers do get relief. Ontario refunds up to $4,000 of land transfer tax, and Toronto hands back up to $4,475 more. But even after the rebates, closing is a five-figure surprise. Budget for your deposit, then budget all over again. So, what does all of this actually buy? Let's put you in the GTA. Your qualifying power lands you somewhere around $430,000 to $460,000 of mortgage. Add a realistic deposit, and you're shopping near the $500,000 mark. In downtown Toronto, or worse, out in the GVA in Vancouver, that buys you a 500 square foot condo. One bedroom, if you're lucky, and a den the size of a closet if you're not. And here's the sting. The listing photos hide a maintenance fee of around $600 a month, every month, forever. Money that builds you no equity and counts against your ratios the whole time. The six-figure earner in the big city isn't buying a home. They're renting the mortgage and buying a very expensive place to keep their shoes. Now, keep absolutely everything the same. Same salary, same 7% stress test, same $460,000 of power, and just move the pin on the map. In Edmonton, that identical money buys a detached three-bedroom house, a yard, a garage, a driveway that actually fits the two cars your grandparents promised you. In Calgary, a spacious townhouse or a starter detached. In Ottawa, a comfortable townhome within reach of downtown. The mortgage is identical. The stress test is identical. But the life is completely different. Economists call that gap a lifestyle surplus. The extra square footage, the second bathroom, the spare room you get to call an office instead of a fantasy. Same income, same rules. A radically different ceiling. The only variable that changed was your address. One more fork in the road, and it's a big one. How much you put down. Take that $500,000 home. The buyer with 20% down brings $100,000 to the table. Their mortgage is $400,000. Clean. No insurance required. The buyer, with the 5% minimum, brings just $25,000. They get through the door for a quarter of the cash. But there's a price. Because they're borrowing more than 80% of the home, CMHC mortgage insurance becomes mandatory. At 5% down, that premium runs 4% of the mortgage on a $475,000 loan. That's roughly $19,000, bolted directly onto what they owe. The low deposit buyer literally walks in owing more than the house cost and pays interest on that premium for years. One buyer trades cash for a clean loan. The other trades a clean loan for time. Neither is wrong, but the math is very different, and now you can actually see it. And a modern note for 2026, first-time buyers can now stretch to a 30-year amortization, which lowers the monthly payment and nudges your qualifying power up by roughly $30,000. It's a real lever. Just remember, a longer runway means more total interest paid at the end. So, how much house can you buy on $120,000 in 2026? The honest answer is that it depends entirely on where you're willing to stand. The same paycheck that rents you a shoebox in the GTA hands you a lawn in Edmonton. Your income didn't change, your stress test didn't change, your CRA cut didn't change. The only thing that moved was the pin on the map. That's the real lesson. Call it wealth geography. In this country, your salary doesn't define your home. Your willingness to move does. The six-figure dream isn't dead. It just relocated. The only question left is whether you're willing to follow it. If you learned something, like and subscribe. We'll see you in the next one.